Okay guys, so we're back for another episode of Ask Armin Some BS. This time we're going to be looking at some cross-promoting and branding between two different studios, and if you really want to get technical, three. So let's talk about Kingpin and Spider-Man. So I think like many of you, a lot of us that grew up in the 90s watching a Spider-Man cartoon think of Kingpin as a Spider-Man villain. It wasn't until I started picking up comics that I was like, whoa, wait, it's a Daredevil villain? Okay, that's kind of cool, that's great. And then I got into that history and it was rich and very deep and very personal. So, yeah, MCU. They have Spider-Man, thanks to Sony. They have Marvel Studios, which is ever-growing. They have Disney Plus now, they have Hulu. And of course, Netflix licensed the Marvel characters that were the Defenders, including Daredevil and Kingpin. So when this guy asked the question, can Kingpin become a Spider-Man villain now and get a role in the MCU? I think the answer is a little bit more complex than just yes or no. So we know that Netflix has this wait period of 2 years after they cancel a show where Marvel Studios cannot do anything with them, right? They can't touch them at all. After that, free game. They can recast, they can bring them back, they can reboot it, whatever they want, but they're currently tied up. Vince D'Onofrio multiple times has expressed interest in coming back as Kingpin for anything, including Spider-Man. So, can it happen? Well, logistically, it comes down to Sony talking to Marvel Studios sitting down and talking to Jeff Loeb, who of course runs the TV side of things, and figuring out where exactly does this character go next. It's honestly easier than most people think. Essentially, they could agree upon it. They could have agreed upon it right now. Spider-Man 3 could literally feature Kingpin working for Osborn or someone, we don't know. It could happen. But the logistics behind it and having to explain everything would be a little bit more complex, considering the Netflix side of things largely is more devoid and divided of everything that happens in the MCU, more so than the other TV series, right? So there's some of those problems in there. Sure, they could do it, but then you would have to worry about some of that backstory and people learning who Kingpin is again. And again, us people that watch Netflix shows, I've talked about this before, we know who he is. We know the backstory. We know when he was a little boy sitting there. We know what happened. The guy that saw Avengers Endgame, the guy that saw Spider-Man Homecoming, chances are he didn't watch the Netflix series, because the numbers are literally about 80 to 90% less. So you have to let that sink in. So it would have to be handled very carefully. I think it can happen, but I realistically don't think it's going to happen. As sad as that is, I just don't think they do it because of the logistics problem behind the storyline reasons. That's really why I think we don't see it. So thanks again for a great question, and we'll be back next episode.